Thank you, Mrs Mackenzie. Welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Scrutiny Audit Committee. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. Members, prior to the commencement of business and the relevant item, I have received requests to speak from Mrs Fiona Troughton with regards to item 5, the petition for preservation of Lochte Woodland. Are members happy to grant this request?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs Mackenzie, are there any apologies or substitutions, please?
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Beattie, with Councillor Braze substituting.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest and statements of transparency? Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. It was just on agenda item 4. It's just a state of transparency. I know the Mackey family, and there are only a couple of farms from me, but I was not involved in any discussion with this petition, and I didn't take part in the petition, so I will continue with and stay in the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, it has been brought to my attention that there is an error within the minute of the previous meeting of the 22nd of October stating that item 5 be referred to Angus Council, when it had been agreed the matter be referred to the Communities Committee. Are members content to approve the amended record as a minute as a correct record? Okay, thank you. And the first item of business is the petition, the speed reduction and upgrade to the bus stop at Balwillow Farm Cottages. Now, I don't think there's anyone here to speak to this. Is there? Mrs Watson, could you maybe update us, please?
Thank you, Convener. I can introduce the report, and we have Andy Barnes from the Roads and Transportation team on the call. So the report advises members of an electronic petition received in connection with a request to reduce the speed limit from 60 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour on the Balwillow Farm Cottages Road, and that the bus stop on the road also be upgraded. As members will see, section 6 of the report contains information from the Roads and Transportation Service, and as I said, Mr Barnes is available on the call to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. I've noted the comments from the roads team, but there's, in my own experience with various speed issues that I've had in my own ward and some that have been happening in others, where it's perhaps not appropriate for, because of policy, for a speed limit to be reduced, are there any other ways that we can or any other things we can do to try and highlight the speed of vehicles? I know that some local authorities will paint the lines in the middle of the road slightly wonky to give the illusion that there are bends and corners where there aren't, and that helps slow people down. Or also, I've seen some other local authorities will paint lines across the road which create a rumbling effect, which helps to slow people down. So rather than an actual reduction in speed, are any of those other options available to us, or have they been considered, or is that just a no?
Mr Barnes, would this be a question for you? Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Yes, no other options have been considered at the moment. This is just a reporting of the petition to Scrutiny and Audit for consideration. But yes, there are other measures that could be considered where members thought that was an idea worth exploring.
Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. Just on page 9, we see the survey dates, obviously the 2011, 17, 20, 22 and 24, and also, and that shows the 24-hour average volume and average speed. September 2024 has the highest 24-hour average volume of traffic and the highest average speed. where would the roads department think there would be a trigger for something to be done there if that kind of trajectory continues?
Thanks, Councillor Gall. Difficult to put an exact figure on where that trigger ought to be. I think it's probably worth noting from the data, we do see that the 95th percentile is 67 miles per hour. So that means, you know, there's very few vehicles travelling more than 67. Round about 66, 67 may be an appropriate point where consideration should be given to additional road safety measures.
Councillor Gavin Nicholl, thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I'm well aware of the area, and under the circumstances, I would propose that we put it to another committee similar to communities for further decisions on it.
Councillor Devine, okay. Are there any amendments? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. I'm quite happy to send it to communities, but I maybe ask for a full report with various options available to us, not just including the reduction of speed, but like what I've suggested, like painting different lines and things like that. Would, if Councillor Nicholl and Devine would be agreeable to add that in as well?
Would that be agreeable to the members? Yeah. Okay. Then is that what we're doing, referring it to Communities Committee? Is that agreed? Okay, thank you very much. And agenda item number 5 is the petition for the preservation of Lochty Woodland, and we have granted Mrs. Fiona Troughton to speak. Thank you. If you just to there. Perfect. And you have 10 minutes, Mrs. Troughton, and I will remind you when you have 1 minute left, and there may be questions. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Convener. Thank you, councillors, for addressing my petition to save Lochty Dunswood Valley and allowing me to speak today. I've seen the recommendation for no further action, and I do now have an understanding of the processes at play, the planning situation, and the neutrality you yourselves must feel you must show. However, we want to give you an assurance today and hopefully receive reassurance from yourselves that you will put your strategic plan front and centre when it comes to planning and collaborate with your people and use our resources. We assure you, community, with our Inveresk Community Council behind us, will continue to fight to preserve Lochty and Dunswood right through planning and onto the energy consents unit stage. It's right to protect ancient native woodland and veteran trees, which are irreplaceable. It is right to protect the setting of the Catathans and one of the special areas in Angus that is nationally recognised as a scheduled monument. Route 4A will go right in front of these hill forts and severely impact the landscape. It is also right to protect local people whose homes have not been properly counted by SSEN. In quotes, a group of council houses is in fact 8 privately owned homes with over 23 folk living there, a foster family, children, people with disability who intentionally bought their homes in the rural environment. This potentially could be ruined by pylons under 150 metres away. When Route 4A was publicised in July this year, it came out of the blue to us and was only due to our neighbours showing us the maps were we householders informed at all. It has pitted neighbour against neighbour because the line has been moved on the back of landowners not wanting it. And it has moved again and again after several consultations, and it is now with us because it was thought it was the better route, the preferred route with fewer folk. I can assure you that we are fighting it very strongly. We've been given no proper justification for why Route 4A is the preferred route, other than no one else wants it, and it's a bit cheaper and straighter. But it will fell ancient woods, and hopefully you all will have seen our petition booklet, which was this one here, which was sent to each and every one of you, I hope. This was crafted back in the early days in July and August, when we were just at the start of our objections. We have now moved on, and we have a full ecological report that was already sent to you. I don't think you've managed to see it yet because I was too late to have it, but with your approval, we'll have it submitted properly through council channels. This has been done by Emma O'Shea of Tay Ecology, and it's fair, impartial, and full of interest. It's full of veteran trees, incredible moss used by ancient people as string, tinder fungus used by prehistoric man to move and make fire easily, red spotted fungus, which is hallucinogenic, leading to the stories of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We also have a very full community-led document built on with local surveys and pulled together by Polly Day, the geography department head at Brecon High School and a local resident. We thank her enormously for an enormous piece of work that she's done. We hope you can use this too in your discussions. So this brings me to the reassurance we need from you, the Council. I have lived and volunteered in Angus for 30 years. I am impressed by much of what Angus Council does, particularly on the children and family services. I was on the children's panel for 20 years. Your strategic plan is impressive. You state you put people first with respect, fairness, integrity, and collaboration. You specifically state that you want to enhance and restore Angus biodiversity with an aim of 100% by 27-28. You say that you will engage with your communities to support ambitions to deliver on local aspiration. And under caring for our place, Angus Council has committed to protect and enhance our natural environment, enable inclusive, empowered, resilient and safe communities across Angus. And so we as a community look to you all now to do exactly that. We want you to work with us, look after us, communicate with us, and help us through what is a very testing time in Angus for communities who are living within the corridor of the overhead lines. We are a community who love where we live, and as modern industrialisation of the countryside proceeds, we need your help. For your interest, we have residents' letters published in the Scottish Field, the Scotsman, the PNJ, and the Courier. We have a local support group via WhatsApp, and a group so empowered by engaging with the consultation process and by meeting Dave Dugan and watching us today, that the SSEN Community Fund better be prepared as we approach them for some funding for walking or befriending groups, because it has become an even better neighbourhood where we live because of this process. So thank you for your time today. We hope to work with you as you put your people first in your deliberations in 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mrs Troughton? Councillor Cowdy. Okay. Any questions from Mrs Troughton? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Devine.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms Troughton, for that presentation and all the information that you've sent us. It's been really well thought through. But as you know, we really can't make comment. I think your whole group knows that. And when I've attended meetings, people have been very nice about that. They've understood that we are not in a position to say anything. But thank you very much again for coming and for all the information you've given. Thank you.
Councillor Proctor, a question.
Could we have more a comment very similar to what Councillor Devine has said? If you may, I'd just like to commend Mrs Troughton and her group on producing such an excellent, easy to follow and informative information. And just exactly as Councillor Devine has said, of course we cannot comment, but I'd just like to commend her on what the work that the group have put into the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now members, we'll now go to agenda item number 5. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you. I was holding back because it's a comment on that item, but not a question for people bringing their petition. I would like some
Councillor Cowdery, I think Mrs Watson is going to introduce the report first, and then we'll go to questions and comments.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Convener. It will be a short introduction. The report advises members of a petition received in connection with the preservation of Lochty woodland. As you'll see from section 6 of the report, we have information there from the Planning and Sustainable Growth Service, and we have Anthony McGuinness on the call who is able to answer any specific questions. You'll see that paragraph 6.2, 6.3 and 6.4 set out the process for the planning application, and as paragraph 6.4 of the report provides, given that this matter is not directly within the remit of the council at the moment, we are a statutory consultee as opposed to the applicant. It is suggested, or the decision maker, sorry, it's suggested that committee note receipt of the petition, and I shall pass over to Mr McGuinness if he has anything further to add at this stage.
Right, you convener. No, I've not got anything to add to Ms Watson's introduction to the paper at this moment.
Thank you very much. Questions then for Mr McGuinness. Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you. This bit of legislation, sorry for coming in too early. It isn't relating to the specific area discussed, because quite rightly we can't comment on that. But at 6.2, it's highlighted that the legislation governing the consenting of overhead line projects in Scotland is section 37 of the Electricity Act 1989. And I would just like some clarification, probably after this meeting, of how that sits alongside the legislation protecting nature, which would be the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, because I think this is a question that's going to come up again and again.
Is this something at an officer will get back to Councillor Cowdery with, Mrs Watson?
Yes, we can do that.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. Can I ask that the response that's sent to Councillor Cowdery is shared with myself and perhaps others as well, because I'd be quite interested to see that too. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Councillor Braze.
Yes, thanks, Convener. And this report is just for noting. But my comment is just to say that it's really frustrating in a case like this not being able to comment on the proposals at this stage, and also to comment on just how limited Angus councillors how limited we are in the outcome of all this with regard to what decisions we can make and can't make. That's all.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? No. Comments? Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
Thank you. And we've got to thank the deputation for their lovely presentation. And I would hope that their deputation, their presentation, can be added to any future involvement going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got 5 recommendations in front of us. Any motions? Councillor Devine.
I'm afraid we just have to go with one. Number 1. That's note receipt of the petition and take no further action, because it's not up to us.
No, it's not up to us, and it's very, very difficult, as members have already said, that we cannot comment on this at this stage. So I think what we're going to do then is recommendation 1 would be note receipt of the petition and take no further action at this stage. Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs Troughton. I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, but unfortunately our hands are tied.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, the first item of scrutiny is the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service quarterly monitoring report for the period 1st of July to 30th September 2024, and we have 2 colleagues from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service with us today to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Firstly, if I can just introduce my colleagues, please. I'm joined today by Area Commander Brian Todd, who's a local senior officer for Tayside, PCAD area, and Station Commander Alan Lowe, who is the lead for fire safety enforcement within the Tayside area and also the Station Commander for Arbroath Fire Station. If I can hand you over to Area Commander Todd now, just to give you a strategic update for the area.
Good afternoon, Convener and committee members. Just as a way of introduction, for those I've not met, I'm Brian Todd. I've recently taken post as the local senior officer for Perth and Kinross and Angus Dundee. Delighted to be here and look forward to working with you all in the future. I'd just like to take this opportunity to provide you with a very brief strategic overview of some areas of work taking place at the moment. The first is the Strategic Service Review Programme, or SSRP for short. The SFRS, like all public bodies, is facing challenging financial and operational circumstances. To help ease with the burden, we've carried out a package of change proposals during 2023-24. Then, between April to June 2024, we conducted a public consultation exercise to gather input on the future direction of the service. The survey received over 6,500 responses, and these are currently being used to guide and enhance decision-making by identifying change options that are strategically sound, operationally feasible and financially viable. The options to be made for the final public consultation was planned for February 2025. However, due to the amount of data and information received, it's likely that this timeline will be extended to early spring. The local plan update. Due to the Strategic Service Review, the SSRP, being carried out, last year the SFRS Board made the decision to postpone the development of the new strategic plan and new local fire and rescue plans. Development of our next strategic plan is now underway, with the aim of finalising this in summer 2025. From this point, I will start to develop our local plans, considering local priorities for our area based on any potential change proposals from SSRP and the priorities of our strategic plan. And will present these to you for scrutiny, and will share a more detailed timeline for development with you over the next few months. I'd like to convey my thanks for your continued patience on this matter, and if you have any immediate concerns, please do not hesitate to get in touch. Our home fire safety visit new process. The SFRS is making changes to our home fire safety visit programme. As of January 2025, the SFRS will be delivering a more targeted visit to high-risk individuals who meet the new eligibility criteria, incorporating wider health and social care issues. This is based around factors which we know increases someone's risk of fire, and that comes from fire fatality research. We have also reviewed and updated our visit content and are exploring ways to strengthen onward referrals and signposting to and from partner organisations, as we know from experience that individuals involved in fatal and serious fires are often known to partner organisations, but not to us. We have contacted our key partners to let them know what the changes are, and provide details of how organisations can assist the SFRS to make communities safer through the delivery of this key fire safety programme. Key agencies and services have been invited to become one of our valued home fire safety visit partners, building upon the success of our current home fire safety work. We have also offered to provide training and to support their staff, and refer individuals to their organisation to access services where appropriate. Our aim is to work with organisations across Perth and Kinross, Angus and Dundee to raise fire safety awareness and ensure that we have information sharing processes in place to identify and engage with those most at risk. And finally, just to notify that, that there will be a change in my management team, as this is Mark's last scrutiny meeting, as he is retiring at the end of January. His replacement will be Alan, sitting to my left, who will take up this post temporary until June with a permanent replacement, when a permanent replacement will be identified. Alan is an experienced officer with a wealth of knowledge of the Angus area and stations, and I'm delighted to have him as a group commander to continue the excellent work Mark has carried out over the last few years. Thank you, thanks for your time, and I will hand you over to Mark to cover the report provided.
Okay, thank you. If I can take the membership straight to page 53 of the combined meeting pack. Looking across the stats there, we have 7 of the 12 headline indicators showing green, 2 showing amber and 3 red. I will now provide some background into each of the indicators. Q2 has seen Angus crews attend 313 incidents, which equates to approximately 24 incidents a week. Moving on to pages 55 and 56, accidental dwelling fires. For headline indicator 1, we are showing green. There were 14 accidental dwelling fires during Q2, which is below the three-year average for 21 for the quarter. The majority are classed as low severity, with 11 of the 14 starting in the kitchen and being contained within that compartment. Others being in a dining room, an external fitting, and one that is unknown. The main sources for the 14 were 9 incidents linked directly to cooking, 3 electrical faults, 1 candle, and as stated before, 1 unknown. Headline indicator 2, we are showing green. There were 0 accidental dwelling fire fatalities during this reporting period. And for headline indicator 3, we are showing amber. There were 7 accidental dwelling fire casualties during this reporting period, which is above the average 4 for this quarter. The 7 casualties came from 3 accidental dwelling fires, where 5 casualties were given precautionary checks by the Scottish Ambulance Service on scene, with 2 elderly casualties from 2 separate incidents required a further precautionary check at 9 Mills Hospital. There were 4 casualties from 1 incident resulting from clothes being left on a cooking hob. They ranged from 25 years down to 3 weeks old. 2 casualties, again from a fire in a kitchen, which originated from a chip pan. Again, 86 and 34 years old, and 1 casualty resulted from cooking being left unattended. With that, Angus crews and the Community Action Team have carried out 195 home fire safety visits over Q2. Moving on to pages 57 and 58, for headline indicator 4, non-domestic buildings, we are showing green. There were 2 incidents within non-domestic buildings, which is in line with the three-year average for this quarter. One was in a takeaway restaurant where the fire in the hob, which led to minor damage to the ventilation system, and the other was a large farm barn fully involved and destroyed by the fire. For headline indicator 5, we are showing green. There were 0 fatalities in non-domestic buildings for Q2, and for headline indicator 6, again we are showing green. There was also 0 non-fatal casualties within non-domestic buildings. During Q2, the Angus Fire Safety Enforcement Officer has carried out 29 visits to relevant premises, of which 21 were either full or post-fire audits. A breakdown of that further, there were 8 visits to care homes, 5 hotels, 4 short-term lets, 4 factories and workplaces, 3 consultations, 3 specific visits, and 2 fire engineering requests. Moving on to pages 59 and 60 from the membership from the document, headline indicator 7 for RTCs is showing green. There were 14 RTC incidents in Q2, which is slightly below the 3-year average of 15. There are no obvious trends in location. 5 RTCs occurred in urban settings and 9 occurred on rural roads. There is no obvious trends in location, weekdays or times of the 14 RTCs. Headline indicator 8, unfortunately we are showing red. Tragically, there was a single RTC fatality during this reporting period from a single vehicle RTC on a minor road leading from the Forfar to Brechin Road near Aberlemno. And again, for headline indicator 9, we are showing red, which is a significant spike. Within Q2, we have had 16 RTC casualties from 7 of the 14 RTCs. 9 of those 16 casualties came from two vehicle RTCs on rural roads. All 9 casualties were taken to 9 Miles Hospital for a precautionary check. Moving on to page 61 and 62. Again, for headline indicator 10, we are showing green. Within Q2 reporting period, there were 35 unwanted fire alarm signals in Angus. To date, the change in mobilising strategy for this incident type has removed a high number of unnecessary blue light journeys, prevented lost working time for our on-call staff's primary employers across Angus. Again, the highest number of unwanted fire alarm signals came from the following premises types: 10 in sheltered housing, 6 in residential care homes, 6 in hospital and medical care premises, and 6 from residential care or secure home for the young. Again, Angus crews and the Fire Safety Enforcement Officer continue to work with duty holders to further reduce this incident type, as we continue to see unwanted fire alarm signal incidents caused by cooking, burnt toast, testing and smoking. Moving on to pages 63 and 64. For headline indicator 11, we are showing amber for deliberate primary fires. We've had 13 deliberate primary fires during this reporting period. This has included 5 vehicle fires, 2 fires within residential care homes for children, and 2 fires within a vacant building in Forfar Town Centre. The remainder were minor in nature. Where we are able to identify any individuals that are involved in this particular activity, we are looking to do the fire setters programme. There was one of the care homes I mentioned earlier on there. We did identify the individual. We did have a programme of fire setters ready to go, but that individual was moved to another care home out with the area. So that was passed on to the teams in that area. Headline indicator 12, deliberate secondary fires. Again, we're showing red for this headline indicator. This is due to 29 incidents within this reporting period, which is below the 3-year average of 30 for this incident type. From the 29 incidents, 12 of these were in the Forfar Loch and Forfar District area, with 6 incidents in the Arbroath East and Lunan, and the remaining incidents were spread across Angus. If I can provide a little bit more context to that. With that, we've seen a bit of concern around about Forfar Loch and Reid Park in recent reports. So again, Forfar crews, along with partners from Police Scotland's community policing team, have been targeting the problematic areas in Forfar in an attempt to reduce this particular incident type. So proactive and visible engagement was carried out in early October. Early signs for Q3, October to the 2nd of December, are relatively positive, as we've only seen 5 incidents in the Forfar area as a whole. 4 of these were prior to the 12th of October, just after the positive engagement programme, and the last incident was on the 22nd of November and was not in either of the problematic areas. We will continue to monitor and work with partners to reduce this incident type in this area. And again, further to that, historically, we've seen the 2 busiest quarters for this incident type, and I fully expect to see this headline indicator return to amber, if not green, by the end of this current reporting year. Page 66 of the meeting pack. Okay, this provides an insight into the work carried out by the Community Action Angus, and the support provided includes Angus Community Safety Advocates conducted 1 fire safety support and engagement fire setters programme for a young person involved in Wolford fire raising. That was in the Brechin area. 17 adult protection AP1 forms were submitted to Angus Council social work over the reporting period. 3 sets of fire retardant bedding issued to persons at risks, and the Angus team attended 12 virtual multi-agency case conferences involving persons identified as vulnerable or at risk. Page 67 of the meeting pack. Notable incidents and events. I'm happy to say we've not had any notable incidents in Angus over this reporting period, but there has been a number of events I'd like to cover with you. CPR life-saving sessions, again throughout Q2, CPR awareness sessions were delivered by the Angus Community Action Team to various community groups across Angus. These essential life-saving skills were also delivered to S4 pupils across all secondary schools in Angus. In total, 811 people received the vital CPR life-saving skill set in Angus. The summer food of fun and safety, I did report on this last time, but again, just closing off on this in Q2. During Q2, a total of 30 open days under the title of the Angus Fire Station Summer of Food, Fun and Safety took place across all 7 stations. Approximately 2,500 members of the community attended, receiving free breakfasts and odd-packed lunches, and over 50 school uniforms were handed out at those events as well. The Forfar Loch and Reid Park anti-social behaviour community engagement, I mentioned that earlier on there, just that drive to get away from the secondary fires in that area. Crews from Forfar Fire Station, along with local community policing teams, carried out patrols and youth engagement sessions around the Forfar Loch and Reid Park to reduce the fire-related antisocial behaviour. And there's been evident that this has paid off in the short term, and again, we'll look to work that through, continue to work that in that. Water safety initiative. Again, following a clear need to support the water safety message across Angus due to a number of unfortunate and tragic events, both locally and across Scotland, the Community Action Team provided water safety posters to over 117 locations across Angus, Dundee, Perth and Kinross. The Community Action Team worked in partnership with Police Mountain Rescue Team, targeting known hotspots such as Edzell, Reekie Lynn, Backwater Dam and Lyntraffin. Again, engaging with members of the public that were there at the time. Lastly, and something that's become quite apparent recently, is antisocial behaviour and urban exploring in vacant and derelict buildings. The Community Action Team and crews from Arbroath Fire Station again joined officers from Police Scotland Community Policing Team in a joint initiative to combat antisocial behaviour and urban exploring at the former Letham Grange Hotel near Arbroath. The visual presence of both organisations was reassuring to local residents who had raised concerns regarding members of the public accessing the building and the potential for fire-related antisocial behaviour. I'd like to, again, just ongoing at the moment, and it's something that's been born from this particular scrutiny group. We've got a winter safety pilot in Carnoustie ongoing at the moment, ensuring kids are safe during dark nights. So we've purchased a number of high-vis items. We're working in partnership with colleagues from Police Scotland to ensure that the kids around that area are safe and are able to cross the roads and beyond that area during this, and we hope to push that further out to Angus if we see how this works out, and that was through a request from Councillor Doran. I'm happy to take any questions on the report from the membership.
Thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Bell, a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and apologies, my broadband won't let me put my camera on just now. Thank you very much for the report, and welcome to both Brian and Alan, and all very best wishes to Mark as you step into retirement. Not envious at all. Just bearing in mind the transitions with new people coming in, I'd be very keen to see you continue to support the community planning partnership. There's been quite a lot of development work over the last few months, and the SFRS contribution to that has been fantastic, and lots of joint working opportunities coming through that forum, with an opportunity to do some really focused work with small groups of people or individuals. I'll be really keen to see that continue, and also just to offer my thanks for the work that has happened in my ward in particular, in Kerry and Dean, around the water safety. That has been a big issue over some considerable time, and I really value your input. And the personnel at Kerrymuir Fire Station are fantastic. They do huge amount of community work, and it's really valued. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I can confirm that, yes, with the transition and changeover, we will still support, and I look forward to tomorrow's Community Planning Partnership meeting. So yes, we'll fully support that moving forward, and I'm sure Alan will be as passionate as I am in regards to ensuring that's supported.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor, a question.
A question. Thank you, Convener. I'd just like to thank the gentleman for the report. My question really is to do with the SFRS review. Last year in Kirriemuir fire station, which is in my ward, we received a new appliance, and it was explained to me on one of my visits to the station that this was a sort of very modern, up to date, and could be deployed over a large area, different instances, throughout. And my question really is, how is this new appliance performing? Has it been deployed as widespread as it was sort of expected to be? Because it was sold and we had a great sort of fanfare, and I hope that living up to the reputation. Just wonder if you could maybe brief me on that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments and your question, Councillor Proctor. Yeah, I don't have the exact detail to hand, but I'm happy to go away and provide that detail to you after the meeting in terms of how many times it's been mobilised and actually used. But just leading on that, we've had some very positive response. We've actually got a really enhanced response by using the innovation of the ultra-high pressure firefighting system, which ultimately reduces the risk to firefighters when they enter a building or a structure, but also gives us a rapid response to attack that fire. So yeah, cutting edge innovation that you've got in your area. It's something that the service is moving around and looking to expand on as well. And in terms of the detail, it's certainly been well received in the area from personnel. But in terms of how often it's been used, if it's been used low, I'm quite happy with that, because it means that we don't have to use it in an operational requirement. But I'll certainly have I'll have some detail for you, and I'll get that back to you on how many times it's been used recently.
Thank you very much. I really, exact details. If you've got more important things to do, you do them. But it's good to know that it's been successful. And I'd just like to conclude, if you don't mind, Convener, just thanking the Fire and Rescue Service. I've attended some of the community events that have been laid on in Kirriemuir, and saw they were well supported by the local community. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Bell said about the activities at the Lochel and Tratham, which is really good to see. That I'm really appreciative of what's all been done. Thank you.
Councillor Speed and then Councillor Cowdy. Thank you.
Thank you, and yeah, thanks, Mark, for the presentation and update. Can't thank you enough for all you and your team do to keep us safe. Just kind of following on from Councillor Proctor, I just wondered if you could provide an update with regards to response times in Angus, and how this compares with national standards and averages.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. That's not something I will happily provide that to you in due course.
Oh, absolutely, not a problem. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Councillor Cowdy.
Yeah, thank you so much for the report. My question specifically relates to the work you did at Letham Gravel. Thank you very much for that, because it is indeed an issue that gets raised with me as the local councillor a lot. Issues around derelict site and concerns about people potentially causing injury to themselves by getting inside it. I guess that's a really good kind of one-off show of visual presence, as is said in the report. But is there any suggestion you can make going forwards about how to minimise future ingress? Because obviously that visual presence will be noted as probably, not being regular. You don't have time to be patrolling it all the time. So what can be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdy. That's a great point, and it's something that's very apt at the moment as the urban exploring, and the number of both vacant and derelict buildings around Angus is causing us great concern. That also covers across the Police Scotland that have the same concerns in regard to that. We have been doing joint partnership working. Again, I mentioned the building in Forfar Town Centre. Again, we've done a lot of work around about that particular former swimming pool. Where we are is we're looking for as much support as we can from all partners to identify owners, again, to put the issues back to them to ensure that their buildings are secure. Where we cannot get that, initially we will carry out the organisational intelligence, make sure that local crews are familiar with that area, make sure that water supplies are all working. Again, that in line with firefighter safety, but the key aspect is to get these premises secured to prevent access in the future. So again, we are working closely with colleagues in Police Scotland, and again, we're looking at all options. I'd welcome any other ideas that come with that to support that. And again, it's about that issue with identifying the owners and having them take the responsibility for the buildings they either own or plan to develop.
Just to say thank you, and I know my constituents would appreciate your are appreciating your continued focus on this. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll go to comments then. Councillor Devine and then Councillor Gregg.
Thanks. Just like everybody else, really want to say thank you for the preventative work you do, and not just through the home fire safety visits, but the CPR that you're doing with the young people and community, and the work that you're doing along with the police around Forfar Loch and the Reid Park. As a Forfar councillor, really appreciate that, because it has been an ongoing problem, well, since lockdown really, and it sounds as if you're getting to grips with that to some extent anyway, so thank you very much.
Councillor Gregg, comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Just wanted to personally thank Mark for his attendance here at these committees over the past while, and for his invitations, which I've very much enjoyed attending some of the training sessions, and just to wish him a very happy retirement. Thank you.
Councillor Blaze.
Yes, thanks for the report. A lot of really interesting stuff in there. My comment is, I suppose, regarding the water safety, but it applies to everything that goes on in the countryside. We all know, and it's fact now, we all know for a fact that being out in the countryside is good for mental health. Getting away from the phone, and preferably, but away from the telly and the computer and everything else. The trappings of modern life is thoroughly good for mental health. And we know that there's a big mental health problem in Scotland. And so it's really good to hear that that the fire service are playing their part in making this as safe as they possibly can for people through education, particularly young people, children. But we have to remember always that you can't mitigate all risk out of this. You never can, and nor should we want to, because one of the big things about getting out in the countryside, particularly for young people, is that it allows them to develop their own resilience and self-reliance, and also their ability to risk assess. So we're never going to manage to mitigate all the risk out, but it's really important that. Thanks.
Councillor Speed, a comment.
Yep, thank you. Just thanks and best wishes to Mark in his retirement, and just to really just echo the thanks that's been shared in terms of not just the kind of the critical work that's hugely important to our communities in terms of emergency responses and kind of rescue operations, but also the community work that goes on through the fire service, which I think is just remarkable in terms of the pooling and bringing our communities together. I think it's always good when you see local people that are working within the service and doing a lot of good in the community, especially at this time of year. So thank you.
Anyone else for comments? Well, I'll have the final one. Yes, I'll just go, and everybody else has touched on it, Mark, and your colleagues sitting over there. The community safety engagement programmes that you've got going are absolutely fantastic. The persons at risk work, the CPR life-saving sessions, the summer of fun, food and safety. And I know that you're working with Police Scotland colleagues as well. They're involved with it too. I noticed that Police Mountain Rescue was mentioned in your report. So well done, and on this committee, on behalf of this committee, if you just thank your colleagues. And from me to yourself, I can thoroughly recommend retirement. I did just that, or semi-retired 2 years ago. So enjoy it and have a long, happy and healthy one. And thank you for attending here today. Members, is this report noted? Thank you very much. Okay, and now we'll go to agenda item number 7, which is the Police Scotland Angus Local Policing Area Quarterly Report for the period 1st of July 2024 to the 30th of September 2024. And I think we've got, if I get this right, Adam Smith with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Operations Superintendent for Tayside, actually appointed last week. But I've been in the division for the last 9 months as the Partnership Superintendent on a temporary basis from Fife, but I'm staying now, so hopefully that'll bring a bit of consistency to you all. I apologise, my other colleagues have not made it today that have some local context, but I'll endeavour to provide local answers to specifics. Just provide a broad strategic update of what's going on in Police Scotland. As most of you will know, the Chief Constable has launched the 2030 Vision, which is a 3-year plan for Police Scotland, and it focuses on 4 key strategic focuses. 1 being safer communities, 1 less crime, 1 supporting victims, and the 4th one is thriving workforce, which I think is very straightforward, so people can understand what that is, and I think it's very relevant to local communities as well, because of course our officers are also part of local community as well. Some examples of the work that's undertaken in relation to that is estate transformation, very current locally with the closure of Forfar Police Station, which in itself is an abandoned building that is not lost on myself around that, and we're already in discussions around the fire service about our exit strategy around that. And can I just say it's really difficult to walk away from a building like that and consider security, so it's provided us with a bit of an inside knowledge when we're speaking to people that own abandoned buildings. Other parts of that is a local police and service design review, which has been led by Chief Superintendent Phil Davidson, who you'll all know is one of the previous local area commanders of this area. And one of the key pieces of work that's coming forward is body-worn video. You'll be glad to know that Tayside is at the front of that rollout, and we're expecting that to land in spring 2025. Having had a few discussions with members today about CCTV and IT, there's a lot of stuff in the background around infrastructure that we're working through to deliver that. Recently as well, the Chief Constable's committed to our annual survey of our staff, and she's confirmed that every year all our staff will be surveyed to get an understanding about the culture and organisation, how to improve things. So I'll just move now on to the local report. I'm looking at page 6, performance on a page, and I was just proposing to pick out a few of the highlights. And my colleagues in the fire service have already discussed quite a lot of the local work that we've got ongoing together. So just to take you through that report, performance on a page, in relation to antisocial behaviour and disorder, overall you'll see that Group 4 offences such as breaches of the peace and Section 30 have declined by about 5.25%. Antisocial behaviour incidents have gone up by a count of 30 in the equivalent period last year. These are reported events, incidents, because I'm acutely aware that a lot of antisocial behaviour goes unreported, and we work tirelessly in the background, our community teams with partners, to address local issues. Just moving on to violence, you'll see that generally it's trending downwards, with serious assaults declining by 7% and common assaults by about 15%, with a detection rate 88% and 74% respectively, which is very high and above other areas. You will note that robbery has risen, so I just wanted to provide a bit of context around that. Although solvency is 67.5%. That's an increase of 4 offences compared to the period last year. Most robberies are not out on the street, random people, so to provide a bit of reassurance, most of these robberies, all but 2, have been within residential premises between people that know one another and is likely to be linked to drugs, in all fairness. The 2 that were not were within retail premises, and I would describe them as shopliftings where violence, a disproportionate level of violence, not any violence acceptable, has been used, as opposed to someone walking in and brandishing a knife. So there has been a rise. There's no particular trend around it, but just to provide you some context around that. With those that have been victims of robbery within their own homes, there's vulnerability in relation to that, and we assess that quite carefully and make sure there's prevention packings in place. Just moving on to public protection, I think it's important to note that overall Group 2 crime and rapes have risen. You'll see there for Group 2, which is things like indecent assaults, it's risen by 55%, which is 78 offences, and rape is increased by 64%, which is 11 offences. You'll see that the solvency detection rate for both of them are still high at 75 and 67%. So what is the trend here? This is a trend that we're seeing nationally, and we view this as confidence in reporting. We find that a bulk of these offences are non-recent, so they've happened over a year ago, and it's where complainants feel in a position where they can come forward, often working with support services before they report to police. So there could be multiple offences reported by the same complainer, so the number of complainers and offences are a different matter. Often it's within a private setting, and it's someone, once again, known to them. It could be related to domestic violence. When we identify complainers in these scenarios, our specialist teams will review previous relationships, and we will approach other partners, which generates proactive complaints. And on that, you'll see with domestic abuse, those offences in relation to DASA Section 1's offences, which are newish legislation. It's a proactive domestic abuse offence, so that rising by about 70% is a positive measure. So I just wanted to provide you a bit of reassurance around what's going on in that sphere. There's obviously dedicated teams of specialist officers that work not only in investigating these types of crimes, but also safeguarding, and the role in partners across that is really important. Moving on to road safety, you will see that the speeding offences are down 9%, and drug driving offences down 4%. This forms part of our Fatal 5 campaign, including speeding and mobile phone use and seat belts that we continue throughout the year with deployments in this area. As my fire service colleagues outlined, there's been 14 serious injury collisions over this time, which was a slight increase, but we're now trending downwards again towards the end of the year. Obviously, moving into the winter, we've got a real focus around that, and our festive drink driving campaign. Just moving on to acquisitive crime, overall we're seeing a decline for house breakings, the likes of frauds and dwelling house break-ins. The 2 things that are trending upwards is motor vehicle crime by 27 crimes. As I'm sure has been discussed previously, this area suffers from travelling criminality, so people moving between major cities, coming from out with and into this area. We have trigger plans around that, where we become aware of ongoing activity, and a plan is put in place around that. On shoplifting, that is risen by 153, 61%. That is a national trend. And I'm acutely aware of issues around retail crime right across this area, and work that has gone on around that. I suppose my comment on that is, with regards to shoplifting, it's a low number of prolific offenders involved in this, and as you'll see, our solvency is around 71%, so we are detecting them and we are reporting them to the proper. With that, there's a 3-strand approach to retail crime. 1 is the enforcement side of it, 2 is the intervention. A lot of the individuals that are committing shoplifting have complex needs around mental health, alcohol and drug dependency, so support is done around those pathways and diversions. And the third bit around that is target hardening, working with retailers to give them advice about CCTV, about prevention, and we have specialist teams and through retailers against crime that will go in and provide that advice. How much they accept that advice is a different matter, but we will continue to push that forward. So that's kind of the performance on the page. I was just going to take us through now to the spotlight. I know there's loads of other things in the document, but I just wanted to take you to the spotlight today, which is on the thematic spotlight on missing people, because I think it's really important for everybody to understand the volume of demand that is not crime for Police Scotland. Generally, 2/3 of all the calls that we get are not crime related. And it's a real priority for us around missing people and concern for us. So to give you a bit of an idea of what that demand looks like, in the last 24 hours, we received, as an organisation nationally, we received 125 calls in relation to missing people. Not all of those became actual investigations, but each one needs to be assessed and a decision made about what we're doing. And there's a term there called a concern for as well, and that is where we have concern about somebody, but we roughly know where they are. So we'll first of all go to their house and try and identify them. If we don't get hold of them there, then it becomes a missing person inquiry. And a concern for incident, there was 469 of those in Scotland over the last 24 hours. That could be anything from concern about a homeless person outside a shop. It could be a member of the public phoning in saying that they're lonely. So it's a vast array of things, and you know, this is like daily business for us. But every single one of them needs to be assessed and a decision made as to whether or not police are the right agency to attend or another agency. So, just in relation to missing people in the Angus area, you'll see on page 25 of my report that in the quarter in question, there were 63 missing people, all traced alive, which is really positive. It's unusual for a missing person to be not traced alive. Most are traced safe and well. And I suppose it's important to understand as well that missing people reports are often the first, you know, if a murder occurs, a missing person report may be the first contact we have around that. So we have to be cognizant of that. The majority of the missing people within Angus during that period were aged 10 to 19. They were missing from home addresses. Elsewhere in other local authorities, a lot of them would be care experienced people, but the majority in this local authority, that isn't the case. It's an even split between males and females, and the trend in Angus compared to last year was roughly the same, so we're not seeing any great increase. We generally see more concern for us than missing people. So that was just to give you a bit of an oversight and just to understand that the performance on a page outlines, you know, where we are around crime, but there's a lot of other work that goes in the background that takes up a lot of time of our resources. So I wasn't proposing to go through the rest of the report line by line, but I'm happy to take any questions that you may wish to ask.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell, question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I guess, as always, the figures on sexual abuse, rape and domestic abuse are concerning, particularly when we're in the middle of 16 days of action against violence against women and gender-based abuse generally. I know you said that a lot of the incidents are historic and that there's maybe one claimant complaining and a number of instances. I just wondered if there's overlap between the perpetrators or alleged perpetrators with a number of different complainants where there's been a series perhaps of relationships or incidents that you can track back to one offending individual, and I guess really just to raise concerns about the toxicity of online misogyny. It seems to be ramping up. There are some high-profile individuals that get a lot of attention because of the way they speak about, the way they treat women and girls, and how that permeates into our schools I had a parent last week talk to me about exactly that, actually, and the concern around, you know, young pupils in secondary school picking up on some of these commentators that have developed quite a following, and that flows through into dysfunctional relationships, both with their peers and with their you know, girls that they want to have a relationship with. And I just wondered if you were seeing that follow through. But thank you.
Just to come back, I suppose, I was speaking to Jennifer Reid, who is our DCI yesterday, who's the lead in relation to this, that some of you will know about this issue, and we discussed it divisionally as well. We expect after the 16 days campaign to actually see a rise in these figures, because people will become aware of it and they'll engage with support services. So that's absolutely a factor that when we promote this, we see a rise in relation to the confidence. In relation to a perpetrator having multiple victims, yeah, we're absolutely aware of that. And what happens with every single case like this, we look at the perpetrator, and our specialist teams unpick previous relationships. And I suppose, you know, it's not just domestic related, but that's part of it. And you'll know about the power to tell policy around us going out and proactively telling new partners about risk there. So absolutely, it's a really complicated picture. And you're absolutely right to point out there's perpetrators in there as well. In relation to misogyny in general and toxicity, absolutely, we run campaigns such as That Guy campaign, which we have running at the minute. And even just sort of moving into public space violence to do with licensed premises, we talk about Bystander and the Ask for Angela campaign. So there's a lot of well-developed campaigns that we have, and we regularly refresh them and modify them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Speed.
Do you mind if I have a follow-up?
Not at all. Carry on, Councillor Bell. No problem.
Thank you very much. It was the mention of Ask Angela. There was some sort of market research done on that recently, possibly down south, that a lot of licensed premises staff didn't actually know what it was when the sort of mystery shopper, if you like, went into the premises. And I wondered if that's something that can be done here, just to test how effective that Ask Angela programme is. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really valid point, and I suppose with our festive campaign we do it all the time, so we're live to that right now and we are promoting that. I think with the nature of that sector, there's a lot of turnover of staff, so it's a very valid point to refresh that, and we'll certainly take that forward.
Councillor Speed.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Mr Smith. I'm acutely aware of the shoplifting on Arbroath High Street and the support that's in place from your team to support the shopkeepers and shop workers. It is just hugely concerning because they are living under constant kind of threat and fear and alarm. You know, some days they're just being absolutely terrorised by those that are involved in this crime. But I also note that there's no live antisocial behaviour orders in place, and I just wondered if you could explain why that would be the case, given the kind of extent of the problems that we're seeing.
Thank you for the question. Just on Arbroath, I haven't spoken to the local inspector there today. There is a retail forum being developed as well, so that's welcome news as well. I'll have to go away and look at the use of antisocial behaviour orders in all fairness. Having just moved off the partnerships portfolio, I certainly know that in the likes of Dundee, there's a lot of antisocial behaviour orders being sought and granted, so I'll have to take that away and speak to the team to find out how we can go about using that as a tool, if that's okay.
Yep, thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. I'd like to ask a question around processes of when somebody's perhaps about to be arrested. and around that, and it might seem like an odd question, bearing in mind looking at the report, but the reason I ask is because, having had a conversation with an officer, they were explaining to me some of the ways in which, if an arrest is made, they then need to call and speak to someone else to get authorisation for that arrest to take place and whatnot. So when that translates into figures, is that process perhaps going to make it look like there's actually an artificial reduction in some crimes because of that process? Or so if you could give us a bit of background around that, thank you.
No, it's a very good question. I suppose there's two things involved in this. One is the Scottish Crime Recording Standards, and that is set by the government as to when we record a crime. So if a crime has occurred, the crime has occurred and it will be recorded, and those crimes will be in these figures. As to whether or not a person is arrested or not, we now work under taking the doctrine, the recorded crime, versus another doctrine of the presumption of liberty. So now the whole criminal justice system now works on a presumption of liberty, and we will only arrest people and take them to a custody suite if it's proportionate and necessary to do so. So what happens now, so if it's a low-level thing, so someone shouting and swearing in the street, is a first, and there's no offending history in the background, that will be recorded as a crime. But first of all, we'll look to use a disposal, a direct measure, which may be a recorded police warning, which would be a warning ticket to that person, desist. It could be a fine, where they could be given a fixed penalty ticket, which is, I can't remember how much it is, it's been a while, so they might be given like a £60 fine. If it's proportionate and they need to go to a police cell, they'll be arrested and they'll be taken to a custody suite. At that point, they'll be processed and they may be released on summons. They may be released under an investigative liberation, which provides some sort of control and bail conditions around them. Or where things are really, really serious, they will be appear from custody to appear in front of a sheriff and potentially remanded. So, to provide a bit of an answer is that we work on the presumption of liberty. We take a risk-based approach around that person, the risk to the public and their offending history. But to provide reassurance, if a crime has occurred, it will be recorded and it will appear in those figures.
Councillor Cowdery, a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, welcome to your new permanent role. Mine's around wildlife crime. So I've had really interesting and instructive conversation with one of your colleagues, and I questioned why Angus doesn't now have a dedicated wildlife crime officer, and I've fully across the resourcing issues that you have with that. So I totally understand that. I have had several constituents approach me in the last couple of months with different concerns about wildlife crimes they think are occurring and concerns around response approaches and times. In the context of this report, I just wondered where wildlife crime is reported in it, because I couldn't see any of that, but I'm aware that it is being reported. So maybe the first step in working out the levels of wildlife crime would be to perhaps flag it more clearly in this report?
So the answer is I don't know where it sits in this. I imagine it may sit under, some of it could be acquisitive depending on it, but it could sit under the Group 4 stuff. However, I'm happy to take an action away to look at that and look at producing some figures around wildlife crime.
Can I just pop back and say yes, please? And would it be possible to have a little line as an individual pull out as opposed to putting it into another category? Because I can't see the things I'm thinking of don't really fit into the acquisitive crime category. Thank you.
Just in relation to wildlife crime in general, you know, I'm very aware of the rurality of where we are, and to be honest, I'd actually rather have more officers upskilled in a multi-skilled way, rather than necessarily a dedicated person. But I think there is still a national framework about intelligence around this, because it's not just here, and those that are committing such crimes may well be involved in other areas. But I will go away and figure out where it sits within it all.
Thank you.
Councillor Braze.
Yes, thanks, Convener, and thanks for this report. I was in a meeting quite recently regarding shoplifting and shoplifting gangs, and was really quite horrified to hear that there's quite a large incidence of traffic people, modern day slaves, who are being forced to join these gangs and go and steal on their behalf. That they're so under the control of these gangs because they depend on these gangs for everything, for their whole livelihood. And I was even more horrified to hear that on some occasions rape can be used as a way of bullying them into doing what their masters want them to do. Also that really quite young children are groomed to be recruited into these gangs. And I just wondered if there are gangs of that nature operating in Angus at all.
I don't believe so. The profile that I've got is around local people with complex needs. It's something we're acutely aware of, and just going back to the whole work stream about missing people as well, that's something that we're very cognizant of as well. Young people going missing around that as well. So short answer is no, I do not believe that is the case. You know, Dundee, urban areas like that, we often find gangs like that will move between large urban areas where it's more obscure. So not here, but we're very aware of that. And with all perpetrators and victims, we kind of screen that because we're not immune to that in this area. It could happen anywhere. So it's a very good thing to point out. We bear that in mind, but not in this area at this time.
Thanks.
Okay, any further questions? In which case then we'll go to comments. Any comments? Councillor Shepherd, thank you.
Thanks for the report today. I just wanted to make a comment on the community councils I attend in my ward. We've had a really good increase in police attendance, and that was a commitment that we've spoken about recently. So I just wanted to thank the police for that extra commitment to attending community councils in person, because I think some of the chat today at committee, you know, antisocial behaviour and things, that's a place where these things get picked up on, and an in-person relationship just helps to counter it. So thanks for that noted improvement. Thanks very much.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Convener. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Shepherd said. There was a time where there was a lack of appearance of police officers at community councils. There's 6 in my ward. I'm now pleased to see that that has completely reversed. There's a good relationship, and it's just a two-way communication. The police officers passing on information, and indeed people from the community keeping the police officer up to date on what's going on. So thank you very much for that, and welcome to your new job.
Councillor Cowdery, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on the point you raised about liaising with the retailers around the shoplifting. I think especially the bigger retailers who have many branches and make millions of pounds all over the UK, I think I can only imagine how frustrating it is for you to be giving advice and it not always being taken. I would say particularly around loan working. As Councillor Speed pointed out, in Arbroath we have several shops which are often lone working female staff members, and I think they need to take the responsibility seriously around paying for security if necessary, because I'm sure you're giving that advice and I don't see all of them taking it. Thank you.
Councillor Speed.
Yeah, just also a comment in terms of the shoplifting on the high street. I mean, I think there are the bigger stores that Councillor Cowdery describes, but there often are more smaller independent shops as well, who we know high streets are, you know, regardless from small to bigger stores, are faced with significant challenges just by being on the high street due to online shopping. And, you know, I daily I'm seeing and hearing stories of, you know, shoplifters coming in and literally they're stacking the shelves with Christmas, you know, stock, and it's, you know, the very next minute, the minute their backs are turned, it's been swiped into kind of large bags and hold alls, and and, you know, the shoplifters are blatantly walking out the door, and it appears to be, you know, that they're getting away scot-free. And as much as I understand the complexities, and, you know, would be the first to advocate for anyone that, you know, has got these challenges to be supported, I also do feel that we need to be mindful of the fear and intimidation and concern that is causing for, as Councillor Cowdy has said, often lone workers, female workers that are on the high street as well, because it is causing so much concern for them day in, day out. So I do feel we need greater deterrence, a much more robust action plan in place as well. But I can't underestimate the work that Mr. Smith's team is doing to try and support and address these issues. But yeah, I do feel more needs to be done. Thank you.
Councillor Proctor, is yours a legacy hand? Because your hand's still up.
Legacy, I thought I'd dropped it down, but I'll do it out. There you go. Thank you.
That's okay. Anyone else? Of course you can.
Just Councillor Speed, I was just going to say that we have discussions just on what you said there about the difference between big retailers with a cash flow and money versus small retailers around that. So we are acutely aware of that, and it was just to give you a bit of reassurance that we do recognise that as an issue.
Thank you.
Okay, and from me as well, Adam, welcome to your new job. And I see all the good community work that you guys do through your social media channels as well as in these reports. So thank you if you'd pass it on to your colleagues from this committee for all that you do. Okay, members, we've got one recommendation that's recommended that we note and scrutinise this operational report. Is that agreed? Thank you. Now, at this stage, our police and fire colleagues may depart if they so wish. You're welcome to stay, but you can. I know you're busy. Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go to agenda item number 8, which is the Angus Alive Annual Performance Report, and we've got Ian Stevens here to present this. So thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Convener. I'll just introduce it briefly before letting Mr. Stevens come in. So this report presents Angus Alive's annual performance report for 2023-24. And that's in order for a committee to review the governance and assurance arrangements in place. The report demonstrates how Angus Alive is performing against the key performance indicators to measure the goals outlined in their business. Members are asked to review and note the annual report, and Mr. Stevens is here today, one of the Angus Alive acting chief executives, to present his report and answer any questions. And unfortunately, Colin Knight, his colleague, is unable to be here today, but I'm sure Ian will cover everything.
Thanks, Alison. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. This is the first version of a new paper that we're bringing to Angus Council Committee, which previously went to the Angus Live Board back in June of this year. So this is to essentially replace the annual report that previously came to Scrutiny Audit Committee, and this provides a little bit more detail behind the high-level numbers in the annual report that, as I said, used to previously come to committee. I don't profess to want to go through the vast amount of detail that's in this because it's all contained within the actual report itself. But as Alison says, I'm happy to take any queries and questions and will do my best to answer anything that would have come Colin's way as well. So happy to take any questions at this stage.
Thank you, Ian. Any Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Convener. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. My first question is in relation to the countryside adventure and the parks, which is on page 108 of our report. There's a breakdown of the number of visitors to Miniki Country Park, Crombie, Forfar and Glendall. My question is specifically around the Forfar, as it notes in here that it's the only one that has a people counter. With the exception of the other three, Forfar is about the only one where people would use it perhaps as a cut through to get, for example, from the High Street up to Turfbeg or vice versa. So when it comes to the visitor numbers, where is the counter, and would it perhaps sort of misinterpret some people just passing through to get to the High Street and count them as a visitor?
Yeah, I can take that first question. So I'm not 100% sure where the counter is located. It is a flexible counter, so it can be located in different parts of the park. And yes, I guess it could pick up people that are just using the park as a thoroughfare through to get from A to B as such. It really is there to give us a guide, and it differs from the other two parks where the actual people and car counters are at the main location into the park. That doesn't, aside from these other parks, different access points as well. So it's very difficult. It's a kind of advancement of the previous arrangements, which was essentially our park rangers going around with clickers and getting a kind of an approximate number of people that were attending the park. So there's a little bit more science to it now with those people in car counters. But yeah, it is open to a little bit of flexibility in terms of people using the parks as thoroughfares.
Sorry, thank you for that. Yeah, because I just thought, obviously with the other three, you're going to have to physically travel to them, so you are going to be a visitor, whereas obviously the Forfar it could be misconstrued slightly. My other question was regards to the theatres and venues. Specifically on page 122. So it's got a percentage occupancy against a target of 75%, and it's currently sitting at 51.58. So that's quite a considerable way off. So I was wondering if you could give us a bit of information as to why that's so badly underperforming, and what can sort of be done to sort of help boost that.
Yeah, absolutely. Theatre space, theatre and venue space, it's pretty much a work in progress. We recruited a new planner to bring in some different activities into the space. Now, unfortunately, because you're kind of working at least a year, 18 months ahead of yourself in terms of the planning of those various events and activities, he has adopted a programme that was already in place. So we're needing to commit to that programme initially, and it's only really beginning to come through now in terms of what that programme is beginning to look like. You'll see that we're also trying to expand that programme not only to the Webster Theatre but into some of the venues across Angus, and you'll certainly hopefully have seen some of the recent activity that's taken place in the likes of the Reid Hall, a couple of sold out performances in the Reid Hall over the last sort of fortnight as such. So that number is obviously not a great number in terms of just below the 52%, but it is a number that we're looking to expand on.
Councillor Speed.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Mr Stevens. I know that the numbers of access office inquiries remain steady, which reflects that ongoing need within our communities for face-to-face support. I just wondered if you have managed to find a way yet to kind of capture and record the length of time each inquiry takes, because I know that, you know, if staff members are having to sit down, for example, with a customer to take them through an application, that it can take, you know, a considerable amount of time, just so that we can ensure that our access offices are adequately resourced. And I also wondered if you'd managed to find a way to kind of capture as well. Do you kind of record when perhaps someone comes in and can't be supported due to staff capacity? Is a note of that taken? again, just so that we can make sure that we are kind of properly supporting our access office staff.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Speed. I guess, as I mentioned, this is the first version of the performance report that we're bringing today. And the next version, we're going to be reporting this back into board on a 6-monthly basis. And the next iteration of the report already expands this out, so we've actually got a little bit more detail with regards to access stats in the next version that's coming along. So we do have the type of inquiries, for instance, in terms of the access provision. You'll also see in the next iteration that access inquiries have actually risen as well. So 23-24, it was quite stagnant as such, but they have begun to rise. I think approximately up 10% on the same period in 2023 for Q1 and Q2. So yeah, that information will be coming to you. In terms of the first question that you had there, we don't, the system doesn't record the length of time, but we have done an off-desk analysis on some of the length of time that we've got a whole load of data sitting in the background, but it's quite a laborious process to log all that manually. But we did do it for a period of time, so we do have a lot of that data sitting in the background. And in terms of the lack of capacity, I'm not aware that there's been a situation where we've not been able to deal with a customer. There may be a delay because we're dealing with various things at various times, but I'm not aware of somebody being told that they have to go and come back on a different date. But I can certainly look and see if there's any data on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Louise Nicholl, thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Elected the use of the mobile service. I didn't notice anything that specifically gave us data on that. Thanks.
Okay, Ken, thank you for the question. Yeah, the number in there is probably an overall number in terms of the access to the libraries. Again, in the next iteration of the report that we will bring back, we will have a little bit more detail in there in terms of the split across the venues, which will include the mobile vision. The mobiles is not as busy as our venues, clearly because of the nature of what it's dealing with. But yeah, I've got some detail in just for the report that's coming next time around, but I don't have that level of detail at the moment.
Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. It was just on page 129 on the staff turnover. When I just look at this, the turnover compared to the headcount number seems excessively high. Now, I'm not sure if that is purely because there's seasonal movement of staff, or is there an issue retaining staff long term?
Just accessing. Yeah, I mean, the nature of some of the services that we operate can be quite seasonal. So, for example, in the museum space, we will specifically employ seasonal advisors to come and work in that space. We also, in the sports side of the business, quite a lot of younger people will come in and work in that space in advancement of going off to universities and things. So by nature, we do experience a lot of people staying for short periods of time. But it's no different to any other industry, I guess, in terms of sometimes difficult to retain staff, but also difficult to attract staff in many ways. And we're trying to work in the background on staff benefit schemes and other measures to try and retain staff as best as we can.
Councillor Cowdery, thank you.
Thank you. So my question also relates to the mobile library. Ian will know that I spent a day on it a couple of weeks ago, the whole day going around on the mobile library around about my ward to learn more about it and to see how people used it and enjoyed it. And it really struck home to me something that I've already been worried about, which is isolation, social isolation, and as well as practical practical isolation with public transport in some bits of my ward, and you could see it was an absolute emotional lifeline for people who not only get on and get the book, they can also have a chat. They could have a chat with a brilliant driver on the day and really kind of have that social interaction, and it was just a great experience. I do see that on page 112, you say libraries propose to continue the promotion of online resources, which is great, but I would really like to see some sort of maybe further marketing of the libraries, the mobile library specifically, maybe a pilot. I appreciate through the door leafleting efforts for a whole of Angus would be expensive, but perhaps a targeted leaflet drop so that more people are made aware of it, because I got told again and again by constituents how valuable a service it was, and I just want as many people as possible to use it. So I don't know if that's something you could consider.
Thanks, Councillor Cowdery. In short, absolutely, yes. And although you were one elected member that chose to come on to the mobile library, it's open to any elected member. I saw there was a lot of activity on your particular social media presence. So if any other elected member wants to participate in such a trip, then they're more than welcome to join onto the library, and hopefully that itself would actually help promote things as well. But happy to take that one away.
Councillor Braze, thank you.
Yes, thanks, convener. And well, first of all, well done, Angus Live, in getting these attendances up pretty much right across the board, really, except for swimming, and that's what my question's about. There's, you know, bucking the upward trend is swimming pool attendances, which are down about 9,000. Could you give us a wee bit of an explanation as to why you think that is? And is there anything that you're doing to try and turn that round? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Don't have the detail. I'm looking through the various reports that I have here, and even for the report that I've got for Q1 and Q2 this year, and the numbers are dipping further still. One of the contributing factors to that is the fact that the Olympia has reopened in Dundee for this year, but I don't have the detail for last year. Let me take that one away, and I'll speak to Colin and his team to try and get a response on that one.
Thanks.
Councillor Gregg, do you wish to come back? Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Just one last question. It's with regards to page 124 on the combined papers, disability and inclusion. I'm curious as to why for 2022-23 and 2023-24, under museums, galleries and archives and theatres and venues, there were 0 activities, which obviously meant that there were then 0 attendees. Could you give us an explanation as to why that is, please?
Yeah, thank you. Again, a relatively simple explanation. We have a team of 1 in disability and inclusion. So they tend to programme most of the activity across the sport and leisure space. You'll see now that that's expanded into the countryside space in terms of health walks and things like that. But it's something that we're trying to expand across to all the various service areas and into libraries, theatre and venues, and into the museum space. But up until the point of 23-24, we've not managed to secure any major activity into that space. Bearing in mind that report ran up to March 2024, so we're 9 months down the line now. So there is activity happening, much more activity happening. So it's a difficult one because the date of this report is so far behind that I'm now needing to kind of move into the next phase, and there is actions in there to obviously improve that activity.
Councillor Proctor, thank you.
Thank you, convener. Ian, just again on mobile libraries, and I know that mobile libraries are more than just sort of handing out books, and I might take you up on your offer and go out as Councillor Cowdery did. Are we still using the facility still there for people who live in rural areas to use the internet and you know, the other services that libraries, static libraries provide.
So I don't believe we have the people's on the mobile library. Councillor Cowdery might be able to tell me because she's been on it more recently than I have.
From my understanding, when I was on the bus, it was explained to me that I think I'm right in saying the Wi-Fi provision is not reliable enough to have that equivalent of a computer for everyone to use on the bus. There is obviously a connection for people wanting to put the books in and out and all that stuff, but as far as I understand, there isn't a provision for that at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about things like, you know, house applications and stuff like that, which can be done at a normal library. Is that available, you know, in the mobile library?
They can give some guidance and support, but they wouldn't be able to fill in the actual application. It was an online application, because as Councillor Cowdery says, that the internet connection isn't robust enough to allow that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. It was just kind of on the back of Councillor Gregg's question. I had maybe wrongly assumed that the reason that there was nothing scored against the libraries and museums and theatres was perhaps because there is activity going on that's fully inclusive and open to all, and perhaps doesn't need the same supports and facilitation as perhaps sport and leisure for people with disability. But perhaps I've interpreted that wrong. So I'd appreciate getting that feedback from Mr. Stephen as well, perhaps offline, just to explain that a bit more. And just on the back of his comment with regards to it just being a team of one, is he able to confirm if there's any plans to expand the support given to the disability inclusion officer, so that we can help tackle our inequalities within Angus?
First, I'll take your first point. So, although there's no stats in there, again, as I said earlier, we are looking to expand into those areas and into those spaces, and there's activity happening without it being recorded activity, as you quite rightly say. So we'll look to develop that into any further reports, so there's a little bit more information in the background of that. Currently, obviously, we have one programming lead, disability and inclusion programming lead in the space, but there is a little bit of support in terms of walk leaders and things into the countryside space to try and facilitate some of that programme. And I know that that lead does work with a number of the coaches across the Angus Alive portfolio to try and put activity on. So although there's only one person devoted to the actual specific header, there are people sitting in the background that are supporting her on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Comments? Councillor Cowdery, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just coming back on Councillor Proctor's question. Something that I think might be relevant to all of us is there have in the past been different people who get on the bus. So, for example, it's been explained that there's maybe people who can go and talk about smoke alarms or talk about there's social security benefits people might be entitled to, and there's a seat on that bus next to the driver that is vacant most of the time. So I would really encourage any elected member to jump on. It's a great way to meet your constituents, but also it'd be great to look at the different services that we could get on that bus in that seat as a way of sort of maximising its value as it goes round, because I'm aware, you know, it costs money to get the bus round, so the more different services we can put on it to help our constituents, the better.
Councillor Bell, thank you.
Thanks, convener. I really just wanted to highlight the benefit of the health walks that are being run. I think they're really important in helping to demedicalise loneliness, isolation, mental health, physical activity. They're increasingly popular. They're increasingly having a role in our preventative and early intervention agenda that we're delivering on through the Health and Social Care Partnership and the Community Planning Partnership. So I really just wanted to say thanks for that, and and maybe there's some opportunity in some of the more rural areas to pick up on the points that Councillor Cowdery's already made around introducing those in more rural areas. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any further comments? No? Okay then. Ian, of course.
Firstly, thank you for all the comments. As I said earlier, we're speaking here about data, which is about 9 months old. So just to say that I'm speaking to council officers about trying to get this in front of you far quicker next time around. We're going to be bringing a 6-monthly report to Angus Alive board. And as I said, this report went to that board back in June. So I'd be keen to get it in front of elected members much quicker, so that we're actually speaking about more relevant data rather than data from 9 months or so ago. So just to pass that comment, thank you.
Thanks for that, Ian. Okay, we've got, of course.
Could I just make a comment, Convener? I think we have to really thank Angus Alive, because they're very much in they're in the place of helping people to take exercise when they don't normally take it. The whole well-being thing is in Angus Alive. It is one of the heart of Angus Alive. So I think the numbers that have gone up in the sports facilities have been fantastic. And as Ian says, we know, having been on the board, we know that the numbers are increasing tremendously in the theatres. So that's really good news. Obviously, the theatres using Reid Hall and Montrose Hall, Town Hall, are new, and people have to get used to going there. But I think that's improving quite dramatically. So the next figures that we see, I'm sure, will be even better than these ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have one recommendation at 3.1, and it's recommended that this committee reviews and notes the Angus Alive annual performance report for 23-24, included in Appendix 1. Do we agree with this report? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ian. Okay, members, we'll go to the first audit item, and it's agenda item number 9, Internal Audit Activity Update, and Mrs Wiley is going to present this one. Good afternoon, Cathy. Hope you're well.
Good afternoon. I am, thank you. So the first report I have today is the progress report with the planned internal audit work and also the implementing of the internal audit and counter-fraud recommendations. I've also got a bit in this at section 5, which starts on page 133, just with an update about the external quality assessment of the internal audit service. You will recall that this is required by the public sector internal audit standards to be undertaken at least every 5 years. Our last review was undertaken in 2020 and reported in January 21. It was running a little bit late at that point because of the COVID pandemic. And we're part of a peer review process with the other local authorities in Scotland, and the new programme is out now and we're at the beginning of that process. So we've just started putting together the self-assessment, which we'll be passing on to our peer reviewer, who is from North Ayrshire Council. The process that SLACIAG use makes sure that there's independence checks done to make sure that there is independence in the council that's going to be reviewing us. So it's just to make you aware. I think some of you may already have received questionnaires from the reviewer. He doesn't speak to everyone, but I think that he has sent questionnaires out to some people. So I'll keep you posted, but we're expecting that we'll have that work finished and be reporting to you in April. So today we have 5 areas that we're reporting to you. 2 of them are reporting and processing for Tayside contracts, 1 item around council tax refunds, and the continuous auditing for payroll and duplicate creditors. So if you just bear with me a moment till I get myself to the right page. In terms of the Tayside contracts audits, we were looking at invoices and processing and payment of invoices. And once we got into this, we realised that it would be easier to split this up and report separately on the different areas. So there will in the end be 4 reports coming to you. We've got 2 of them coming today, and the other 2 are in the process of being reviewed and will be out, if they're not already out, to the services very shortly. So the first one that I've got here is around the cleaning of non-school facilities. The audit scope that we undertook was the same in every audit. So we were looking at reviewing the procedures that were currently in place for monitoring, authorisation and payment of invoices from Tayside contracts. And that was to make sure that the invoices themselves were received with sufficient detail to allow them to be checked, that there were adequate procedures for the receipt, review and authorisation of the payments, and for resolving queries or disputed invoices, and also to make sure that payments were only being made for services that were received or work that had been done to the required specification. So for this report, which is on cleaning of non-school facilities, we have we've got substantial assurance for this one, and we have 5 recommendations that we've made. There's one level 1 recommendation, which is about putting in place an agreement between Tayside Contracts and the Council for the facilities cleaning in non-school premises, because there isn't an agreement in place at the moment. The other recommendations are mostly around making sure that there's enough information with the invoices to allow them to be fully checked, and a bit of additional work around making sure that the audit trail is fully recorded, and in terms of some segregation of duties in some of the processes in one of the areas. There's a level 4 recommendation, which is really just a sort of improvement thing, which we've made in every one of these reports, which is around keeping a log for disputed invoices. At the moment, what happens is the records are kept around any disputed invoices, and as soon as they're resolved, the records are deleted, which is fine, but I think we just thought it would be better to have a log to make sure that you did actually make sure that things were followed through, and also to be able to look back on it and see if there were any recurring issues that would maybe be able to be dealt with and stop them from happening in future. So the second one that we're looking at is the Tayside Contracts invoices for schools, and that was covering schools catering, cleaning, janitorial services and crossing patrollers. In this case, we've got comprehensive assurance, and we have 2 recommendations here. One is the low level one around the log of disputed invoices, but we've also made another recommendation just around having a bit more information in the supporting documentation for invoices around facilities management charges, just to make sure that all the information is there for that checking. The next piece of work that we're reporting was something that we undertook as an addition to the plan, just as a high level piece of work on the back of reporting of a major fraud that was recorded in another Scottish local authority, where an employee had created false council tax refunds and paid these into their own bank account. We wanted just to make sure that the processes that we had in place would either prevent this from happening, or we would have undertaken some testing just to make sure it hadn't been happening. What we found was that there is robust segregation of duties in our arrangements. The processing of the refunds and the payments is undertaken by different staff who work in different teams within the revenues and benefits. And on that basis, we concluded that we didn't need to undertake any further testing at this point in time. Obviously, there will be testing around this at some point in future, probably when we're doing a cyclical audit of council tax, which we do every few years. And the final pieces of work that we're reporting are the continuous auditing around the payroll testing and duplicate payments for the period from July to September, and both of those have come out with comprehensive assurance. There were no issues identified in the payroll testing, and there were only a very small number of low-level duplicate payments in the creditors, which had been which have either been repaid or are in the process of being repaid at the moment. And the final area of information is around the outstanding actions. We have 60 internal audit actions outstanding at the moment compared to 68 the last time that we reported to you. I think it's quite good to see that although we have that number of actions, there are only 7, I think it is, if I get down. Yeah, only 7 of those are actually items which have been extended past the original due date that was agreed when we undertook the audit, and the vast majority, the balance of these are have not reached their due date yet. So that's good in that it means that people are adhering to what they've agreed when the audits are finalised. We do have a few counter fraud actions that are also still outstanding, 3 of those which haven't reached their due date and 3 which have gone past their due date. But happy to take any questions if anyone has anything.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Shepherd, thank you.
Thanks. I was just wondering if we could have a little bit more detail on how the process worked for the additional cleaning of non-schools, if the hours, basically before these new recommendations came in, you know, there seems to be a bit of risk about recording of hours and possible overcharging. So just wondered if they could give some reassurance that none of that was taking place, if you know what I mean, Cathy. Thanks.
Yeah, so what the invoices show is information about where the cleaning has taken place and when it took place, and so that's able to be checked. Well, the other tests that we were able to do, we know what the hourly rate for this work is, so we were able to check that all of the invoices were divisible by the hourly rate, so it did look as if it had been calculated from an hourly rate. And I'm not absolutely certain, but I'm pretty sure that my team would have questioned any that looked like they were excessive hours in terms of what had been done. So that's what's currently being done in terms of those. And as you see, we've made the recommendation to have a bit more information.
Thanks. That makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Any other questions? Comments? No. Okay, you've got 3 recommendations there at 3.1, 2, 3 and 3. Is this report agreed? Thank you very much. So the next item is Mrs Wiley again that's presenting this one, and it's agenda item number 10, the Corporate Counter Fraud Mid-Year Review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Convener. And this is, just as you've said, the 6-month update in terms of the work that the counter fraud team has been undertaking. And I'll just briefly run through some of the things that they've been doing. It's starting on page 156. So we do investigate employee and corporate fraud, and these are items that come to us that are reported in various ways. And there have been 11 investigations concluded in the last 6 months. And these have looked at things like allegations of an employee working elsewhere whilst absent due to ill health, misuse of council resources, fraudulent grant application, falsifying records, theft, credit card misuse, working time fraud and school fund irregularities. Improvement actions have been recommended in 8 cases, 2 of which had been referred to Police Scotland. We also undertake proactive work looking at data matching, and we're currently in the process of an exercise where we compare the records of the electoral roll with council tax records, just to identify where people might be claiming single person discount when they're not entitled to it. The National Fraud Initiative is an initiative that runs in a 2-year cycle. We've not quite recently submitted the information for the current round, and we're expecting to have the matches for that in December to be able to start checking on these in the new year. We do look, when it's brought to our attention, around potential tenancy frauds, and during the period there's been 1 council property that's been returned to the council for reletting. We also undertake fraud awareness around general fraud issues and serious organised crime, and also anti-tax evasion. And there's been a bit of activity around publicising some of these things, just to make people more aware of them, and also getting involved with developing e-learning programmes that people can use and access on Always Learning. So going forward, we're still undertaking the proactive work around the council tax matches. We'll be working on the NFI work, and there's also an exercise looking at school placement fraud. So that's what's going to be happening in the team in the next 6 months. Unfortunately, Ewan Ritchie, the counter fraud team leader, was unable to be with us today, so I will do my best to answer any questions that you have. But if I can't answer them, I'll take them back to Ewan and get back to you.
Thank you very much, Cathy. This might be one for actually our housing officers from me. At 5.6 on page 156, can we get an example of what tenancy fraud is? Because I'm not sure just what it is. Please. I have an idea, but I'm just not 100% sure. Thanks, Claire.
Hi, convener. Yeah, it can be a number of things. So it could be where somebody's lied on their housing application form, for instance, and it's investigated, and they've got they've been allocated a house incorrectly through fraud, or where, you know, there's benefit claims, etc., that are, you know, causing tenancy fraud, where they've got people staying within their house that they say aren't there, and actually they are there. So it can be a number of different ways that we can look at tenancy fraud.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Questions? Comments? No, we've got one recommendation at 3.1. Is this report agreed? Thank you very much. Second last item now, members. Agenda item number 11, Compliments Report Q1, the 1st of April to 30th of June this year. And I think Mrs. Watson is going to present this. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Yes, this report and appendices highlights the complaints received in quarters 1 and 2 up until the 30th of September this year, to assure members that work is ongoing to learn from complaints received by the Council. The report also includes details of compliments received during these periods, and members are asked to note the details provided in the report. My colleague Gary Munro, who assisted Elaine Whittet in drafting this report, is on the call to answer any questions, as well as officers from across different services, if that's required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Gregg. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. My question was around lessons being learnt, and specifically on page 165, which is Appendix 1. There are, and in other parts as well, under the findings lessons more than once, the council's not at fault, so no lessons learnt. But surely, even if the council isn't at fault, there must still be some lessons to be learned somewhere along those lines. So could we perhaps have a bit more information around that and looked at? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So every complaint is upheld. I can see here a couple here that have not been upheld, so it may be that the council have done all that's possible in those circumstances, and people still remain dissatisfied. So I take your point. There is aspects where matters can improve, but in these particular cases, it doesn't appear that's been the case.
Can I just come back? Is that okay? Yeah, I think really what I was kind of looking at is the council not at fault, no lessons learned. So that could, way I would look at that personally is thinking, well, perhaps they've made a complaint not understanding the actual processes. So yes, the council wasn't at fault, but the way in which it was dealt with, whether it's the responsibilities, whether, for example, if it was to do with a repair or something, and the fault actually lay with the person that was doing the repair, and the council had done everything. So perhaps it's an educational thing with some of the tenants. Perhaps they need a better understanding of various parts within housing, and that thing about no lessons learned. I would think that there are always opportunities to learn lessons, even when it might not first apparently be clear, but we should be doing as much as we can to learn as many lessons as we can, and then perhaps get rid of the council not at fault, no lessons learned, because we can always learn something.
Yeah, I take your point. Yeah, it's perhaps poor language being used here, and we are looking to develop a new complaint system, and that should be addressed going forward. So there is better language being used, but the council genuinely are looking to improve all the time, and the complaints process is a very valuable tool in how we can address any concerns raised by the members of Angus.
Councillor Shepherd, thank you.
Yeah, I was actually going to be asking pretty much exactly the same question as Councillor Gregg just asked there, and I very much agree with a lot of what he said there. You know, the reason I thought I'll still mention it is just a thought for a culture thing. You know, like as a council, sometimes I see on Facebook things like that, people having a go at the council, and you know, I think the council does a lot of good. But for me, I was very much, when I did go through this one, you know, the statement of council not at fault, so no lessons learned. I think culturally, like that should have been picked up well before it's getting to committee. That language, you know, there's, like Councillor Gregg said, there's always opportunities to learn, whether it's a partner or, you know. So that for me, I just think we need to. I don't want to see that coming back to committee, that statement in the complaints document. So really, I think, and culturally, I think the team should maybe just reflect on that a little bit and just think, you know, putting a statement like that's not really unacceptable to get to us at committee. So I agree 100% with Councillor Gregg that, you know, alarm bells were ringing when I saw that as a finding in the findings column. So just kind of glad that I wasn't the only one thinking so. Thanks.
I think our Chief Executive wants to come in as well now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members, for that feedback. And in relation to the wording of the "so no lessons learned," we will absolutely look to reflect that in future iterations of this report. But I would draw to your attention that, for example, on line 11, where we have not upheld a complaint, we are also recording that we failed to meet customer expectations and therefore lessons were learned. So if I can give you some assurance that it is not an automatic, that if something is not upheld as a complaint, we just don't bother looking at any learning that arose from that. So I just want to point that out to you so that you've got a little bit of assurance even within the content of this report, aside from the wording, which is perhaps a bit clunky. Culturally, we are always looking to learn from the feedback we receive, whether it's formal feedback through complaints or otherwise, and we're very keen to take that feedback on board and reflect it in our future iterations of services, plans, etc. So I just wanted to come in and clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Gregg. That was something that I picked up on too. But I know Mrs. Lindsay's comment to that. I guess I believe that, you know, people really don't make a complaint unless they feel they really need to and they're feeling aggrieved. And I think, you know, people's lives are busy and it's the last thing that they want to be doing. I just wondered what work is going to be done to try and address the need for complaints to be escalated. Again, that just puts the person that's making the complaint through a further process that you know, isn't something that they likely want to go through. So I just wondered what has been done to try and address that, because a number of those complaints that have been escalated have actually been upheld.
Can you just direct me, Councillor Speed, to the aspects you think that have been upheld once escalated?
Unless I'm interpreting it wrong, Mr. Munro, but it does look like there are complaints that do get escalated, and then when they are escalated, let me just flash up the page number, they are actually upheld. So it just seems like, had they been perhaps resolved at an earlier stage, stage 1, it would save the person having to go through that next stage, and also as well use of officer time when things could have perhaps been resolved much sooner.
Yeah.
Do you see where?
I do. I have that information before me. So we are currently looking at new systems in how we're dealing with complaints. That will involve brand new training for staff as well. We're going through a procurement exercise at the moment, and that new system is looking to be developed by the start of the next financial year. On the back of that, there will be brand new e-learning modules being rolled out, and for each stage 2 officer, they attend SPSO training, and it's going to be a sort of train the trainer aspect, and that will be rolled down the way for a complaints handling process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? No comments. Is the report then agreed? Thank you very much. And the final item is agenda item number 12, the annual complaints performance report. Mrs. Watson again, please.
Sorry, Convener. Yes, so this is the annual report that we're presenting to members as required by the SPSO. The report is included within Appendix 1, and we're asking members to note the contents of the annual complaints report. And again, myself, Mr. Monroe, and other colleagues from across services are here to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this one? No. Comments? Okay. Is the report agreed? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to you all for your attendance today. I probably will see most of the elected members at the council in November, but if I don't see any of you before that, have a very relaxed and well-deserved festive season. Thank you.
Sandra, can we stop the live stream, please?